Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So we are going to be doing another tournament style video putting two brands head to head, and I actually asked you guys over on Instagram what were two brands that you wanted to see me compare, and so many people said Rare Beauty and Fenty. And I totally understand why that was such a popular response, because both of those brands, while they're not completely similar in every single way, they're both founded by celebrities. They actually have a lot of very similar types of products, and they're both extremely popular. So I went through both brands and paired all the similar products together. And not only am I going to give you guys reviews and let you know which product wins the battle, but I'm also going to be demoing it on my face. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun and hopefully helpful for you guys. Don't forget to let me know all of your thoughts in the comments on both of these brands. And if you want to see me do this again, let me know what other two brands you like to see go head to head, and hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy these types of videos, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And let's get right into it. The first product category that we're going to tackle is the base. Now, both Fenty and Rare Beauty have two different types of foundation. They both have more lightweight foundations and then more full coverage foundations as well. So for the lightweight foundations, we have the Fenty Eavesdrop as well as the Rare Beauty Tinted Moisturizer. This is not starting off on the strongest note because I cannot find my Rare Beauty Tinted Moisturizer for the life of me. I literally ripped apart my entire makeup collection and it is completely MIA. So even though these are both skin tint-esque products, they are actually very different from each other. One of the biggest differences between the two is the finish. The Fenty Eavesdrop has more of a soft matte finish, and the Rare Beauty Tinted Moisturizer has much more of like a typical tinted moisturizer feel and finish. It is definitely a lot more hydrating. It has a little bit more of a glow. Keep in mind, this is obviously based off of my own preferences, and I do have a drier skin type, so obviously my preferences do skew towards more of a dry skin friendly product. And you would think that because the Eavesdrop is more of like a soft matte finish, that I would automatically prefer the Rare Beauty Tinted Moisturizer, since it is a little bit glowier and it is a little bit more hydrating. But I do actually prefer the Eavesdrop. I feel like this is quite a unique skin tint because this is more of like a blurring product and it has that soft matte finish. I do find that it kind of gives this really perfected look to the skin, despite it being really lightweight and thin in texture, and also just providing like the perfect amount of coverage for that like lightweight type of day. This definitely can be a little bit more of a finicky product if my skin is extra dry. I tend to not really go towards this in the winter time, because if my skin is dry, then it will definitely accentuate my dry patches. But in the summertime especially, I really love this product, especially on really hot and sweaty days. This is amazing because it does not go anywhere. It doesn't slip inside around because it's not a super emollient or like slippy texture, and it just always wears and looks really beautiful. And with the Rare Beauty Tinted Moisturizer, I feel like there are so many other products out there that are super similar to like that type of texture and feel, because it is just like a hydrating, slightly glowy tinted moisturizer. My biggest gripe with the Rare Beauty Tinted Moisturizer really is the shade range. I find a lot of their shades lean really yellowy orange, and I wasn't able to find the perfect shade match. Whereas with Fenty, we all know that the Fenty shades are probably like the best in the makeup game. Like, they really have something for everybody. For the light covered foundation, the Fenty Eavesdrop definitely wins for me. Okay, so now let's move on to the full coverage option from both of these brands. This is the Liquid Touch foundation from Rare Beauty and the Pro Filter Soft Matte Long Wear foundation from Fenty. These are both really similar, and way more similar than the Eavesdrop compared to the tinted moisturizer, because they're both full coverage or more like medium to full coverage matte foundations. Generally speaking, I don't typically go for foundations that are more on like the matte full coverage side. I just feel like they're not always the most flattering for my drier skin type. So keep that in mind. I feel like I have a slight bias because of just my skin type. But with that said, when it comes to more of a matte full coverage foundation, I guess I'm actually a good person to test them out because I'm extra picky with them. I really don't want them to be cakey or too drying or look heavy on the skin. And I actually find that as long as you apply these properly, and by properly I mean not too much of the product, and you use like the right techniques, that these actually work really nicely despite me having like a drier skin type and not typically loving this type of formula. So let's start off with the Fenty side. I use the shade 225. Again, between the shade range for Fenty and Rare Beauty, I definitely do prefer the Fenty shade range. For some reason with the Rare Beauty shade range, I always find it difficult to find like my perfect match, whereas with Fenty, it's so much easier to find something that will match me perfectly. Although I matched this to myself a couple months back, I am a little bit more tan right now, so I'm hoping that it's gonna match right now, but we'll see. My skin is already freshly prepped and moisturized, and that's something that I do recommend for both of these foundations. I definitely do prefer a sponge for both of these products. It keeps it looking nice and fresh. And I guess the Fenty side of my face is gonna be my left side. So with the Fenty, a small amount of this really does go a long way. So you can get some pretty solid coverage with not a lot of product, which is key for more of like a full coverage matte foundation. I find that this foundation is more likely to look cakey when it's applied with a brush, which is why I do prefer a sponge. And the coverage is great. It's like a solid full coverage and it's totally buildable too. For the Rare Beauty side, I'm a little bit worried that the color is like really not going to match. And so my face is gonna be two different colors, but it is what it is. So I have the shade 270N. Oh yeah, it's definitely a little bit too deep for my skin. Sometimes the samples at Sephora can be deceiving because I tried it on in the store and I was like, oh, this is perfect. I don't think it's gonna be perfect. I think it's gonna be a little bit too deep, but that's okay. Same thing goes with this product. A little bit goes a long way. You see those like 4 dots that I just put on my face. They spread really quickly, really easily. And gave me really good coverage right away. I can't believe the shade match though. I'm a little bit upset about it. I would more likely go towards the Rare Beauty one. I really like the fact that it's a little bit more lightweight in texture. It feels like slightly more serum-like compared to the Fenty. And I find that it also gives the skin a little bit more of a glow. It's not as like flat matte as the Fenty one. So for this round, the Rare Beauty Liquid Touch wins. Now let's talk eye brighteners. This is the Rare Beauty Under Eye Brightener and the Fenty Bright Fix Eye Brightener. So these are essentially eye brighteners that you're meant to either put underneath your concealer to give your concealer a little bit of like a boost with the brightness, or you can wear it on its own if you want very, 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 very lightweight coverage and just a little bit of brightness. Let's start off first with the Rare Beauty side. So I'm using the shade Light Medium. It's a metal applicator, and I get why they did the metal applicator. It's supposed to be cooling and depuffing, but it's a terrible way to apply any type of product because no product really sticks to it. And so you constantly have to go back in and out of the tube to pick up more product because there's like nothing that actually stays on the applicator. So it's just a bit annoying. Besides the applicator, I mean, it does exactly what it's meant to do. It very, 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 very lightly brightens up the under eye. I think that this is a nice product for like a no makeup look. It gives a nice little glow to the under eyes. Now let's move on to the Fenty side. I'm using the shade Golden Ivory 02. It's been a while since I used this, but what I remember about this is that I didn't like it because even though it was like light in the coverage, it still looked heavy underneath my eyes, which just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Formula has a little bit of like tackiness to it, whereas the Rare Beauty is really very serum-like and very kind of slippy in texture. So especially if you have a lot of fine lines underneath the eyes, because of the texture, it really sinks in to those fine lines and accentuates them. And for a product that should be so lightweight and kind of easy, it's just not that for me, and that's why I'm just not the biggest fan of this. Between these two, I do prefer the Rare Beauty one. Okay, now that our under eyes are nice and bright, we are gonna go into the full coverage concealer. We have the Fenty Pro Filter Concealer and the Rare Beauty Liquid Touch Concealer. These are both supposed to be more matte full coverage concealers. Start off with the Rare Beauty side. I have the shade 210N. So I picked up a fresh one of these again today, and I've actually been meaning to pick up another one of these for a while because for a long time this was actually one of my favorite more full coverage concealers, but I just haven't brought it back into my collection for no particular reason, just because I've been playing with like other concealers. But honestly, this is a really beautiful concealer and I did kind of miss it. It just gives like the nicest finish to the under eyes. It gives a very perfected like airbrush finish. I find that this works really nicely over fine lines, like it doesn't accentuate them. I find it almost like smooths over the fine lines. And this is also a concealer that I don't necessarily feel like I need to set with powder, and it'll last and not really crease very much throughout the day. Look at how nice and just fresh that looks underneath the eyes, but it's completely full coverage. Then the Fenty concealer. This is the shade 120. I'm just not the biggest fan of this Fenty concealer. Very similar to the eye brightener. It's a very kind of like tacky, thick texture. It's a little bit more like difficult to blend out, whereas you saw the Rare Beauty one really like blended and melted into the skin. This one just takes a little bit more work. I'm actually gonna go in with my sponge to blend it, and this color is way too light for me, so keep that in mind. All that to say, it's just way more drying and not flattering underneath the eyes at all. So for this round, Rare Beauty wins for sure. Let's talk setting powder. I have the Rare Beauty setting powder here in light and the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Instant Retouch Setting Powder in Banana. You guys know, or maybe you don't if this is your first time stumbling upon one of my videos, but I'm incredibly picky when it comes to powder. This powder from Rare Beauty is beautiful. So this powder really does exactly what I wanted to do. First of all, the color is like this really nice, very light pink color. It doesn't show up pink on the face, obviously. If you're close to my skin tone, this is a really nice brightening shade. So what I do is I just put a little bit in the cap and then just work it into a fluffy brush. And I'm just going to set the under eyes. This is a powder that I like to use when I don't just want my skin to be set, when I actually want it to be smoothed as well. This is a really great smoothing powder that isn't too heavy on the skin and that also brightens things up as well. So it kind of does a little bit of everything. So I'm a big fan. Fenty powder. So this is the shade Banana. The packaging of this is also beautiful. This powder works in a very, very similar way. It's also more of like a smoothing, blurring type powder. It works nicely for my dry skin. I don't find that it makes it look dry or cakey, but it does sit a little bit heavier on the skin. I do feel like they are very comparable. The shades are obviously different. This leans more yellow. The Rare Beauty in light leans more pink. For this round, Rare Beauty does win again. I just like the fact that it's a little bit more lightweight. Now let's move on to cream bronzers. From Rare Beauty, this is the bronzer stick in the shade Bright Side. This is actually a new bronzer shade from Rare Beauty. I was using another shade for a long time, but I saw this one when I was at Sephora picking up everything else and I picked it up. And then for Fenty, this is the Cheeks Out Freestyle Cream Bronzer in Butter Biscuit, which looks like this. So the Fenty Cream Bronzer is probably my favorite product that Fenty has in their line. I've been a fan of this cream bronzer since they released it. The range of color is also amazing. It is so hard to find a good bronzer range that really gives you everything from something that will work on the fairest skin tone to the deepest skin tone, and Fenty once again kills the shade range. It's one of those cream bronzers that just blends and melts into the skin so easily. You barely have to do any work for it to look good. I feel like this is a product that you can kind of just like slap on, not really worry too much about it, and you're always gonna get a really beautiful effect. I also feel like it's like the perfect consistency. It's not too emollient where it like slips and slides. It's not too matte where it's kind of like hard to blend. It's just that perfect in between. The Rare Beauty bronzer is a little bit different in the format. This is a stick, and obviously this is in a little compact. Fenty does have the matchsticks, which does come in a stick like this, but I actually feel like the Cheeks Out Cream Bronzer is way more comparable to this formula than the matchsticks. I have no complaints when it comes to the Rare Beauty bronzer. I'm actually really, really happy that they came out with this new shade because I feel like this is like my perfect bronzer shade. When these first released, I was kind of on the fence with this bronzer, mainly because of the shade and not so much because of the formula. I found the shades just leaned a little bit too orange for my liking. And this new one is like the perfect, more neutral color, which I find just works really well for my skin tone, so I'm very excited about that. This is also very easy to blend and work with, and it kind of has like all the same properties and good qualities as the Fenty Cheeks Out. I think the biggest difference is that the Fenty Cheeks Out has a little bit more sheerness to it, but it's still very, very buildable. Honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these. I think it more so depends on whether you want something in a compact or something in a stick. I think I'm probably gonna go with the Fenty Cheeks Out for this one because it's just a go-to and it never fails me, and it's really good. This is also really good too, but I think Fenty wins. Now let's talk cream blush. These are both completely different shades, by the way, so they are not even gonna look even a little bit similar on my cheeks, but that's okay. On the Fenty side, we have the Cheeks Out in Petal Poppin', which looks like this. And then on the Rare Beauty side, we have Nearly Apricot, and this is called the Melting Blush, which looks like this. They're actually really, really similar. Okay, that maybe it won't look so crazy. Okay, let's first start off with the Rare Beauty Melting Blush. So I'm actually gonna apply this with my finger. I'm using my finger to mainly show you guys how easy these are to apply. They really, really just like melt on contact with your skin. The thing that I find about these blushes, even though they apply and they look like nice and bright, I find that they fade very, very quickly throughout the day. Cream blushes naturally will fade a little bit quickly, but some formulas will fade less than others, and this one I do find does fade. So that's something to definitely note. It's a really like light sheer cream blush. It is really pretty. I do like the formula. It's not my absolute favorite blush formula out there, but it does work nicely. So that's that. For the Fenty, this is, like I said, the shade Petal Poppin'. I'm gonna apply with my finger as well, just to show you how it compares in application. The Fenty does have more of like tackiness to it. It also has a little bit more of a glow and also more pop when it comes to like the pigment. And I find that the color does last really nicely on the cheeks as well throughout the day. Definitely has a longer staying power compared to the Rare Beauty one. They're both pretty, they both work nicely, but I think the Fenty cream does work a little bit better just with the longevity. So this is the winner. So now let's talk powder highlighter. This is the Rare Beauty Exhilarate, and this is the Killawatt Freestyle Highlighter Duo in Afternoon Snack Mo Honey. I'm pretty picky when it comes to powder highlighters. I definitely don't love powder highlighters that give too much of like an obvious sparkly highlighted look. For something that's a little bit creamier, that kind of gives that like glow from within. The Rare Beauty highlighter is very intense and actually very sparkly. Kind of unexpected, I find, from Rare Beauty. I feel like I would have expected something a little bit more natural looking, but they really went hard with these. Like, they are intense. Let me show you. I'm gonna just take a fluffy brush and sweep it on my cheekbone. What I don't love about this is I find that it really does accentuate a lot of texture because it is so intense and glowy. You kind of have to be a little bit careful with it. Even though it's really intense and objectively pretty, it's just not my favorite texture for a powder highlighter because I just feel like all of my texture over here is so much more emphasized. Now moving on to the Fenty. So with the Fenty duos, you have more of like a subtle side and then a side that has a little bit more intensity. Like, this is very metallic. I do have a pretty similar feeling with the Fenty highlighters. They're very intense and very reflective and, again, objectively pretty, but they do accentuate a lot of texture, which is just not my favorite thing. I actually use this more often than not as an eyeshadow, and that's what I've been using this for ever since I realized it's just not my favorite as a highlighter. And I do the same thing with the Rare Beauty one. So this is another product that's kind of a draw for me because they're just both not really my absolute fave. But if I had to choose, I would probably choose the Rare Beauty one. But again, it's more of a draw than anything. So now let's talk mascara. This is the Fenty Hella Thick, and then this is the Rare Beauty mascara. I don't know what the name is for this one, actually. Starting off first with the Rare Beauty mascara. When I first tried this, I actually thought that I didn't like it. I think I judged it too harshly too quickly because this actually very quickly became one of my favorite everyday mascaras, and it's one that I often will reach for. I feel like this is just a great day-to-day everyday mascara. It really does everything for me. I find it makes my lashes look very fluttery. I love the volume, the length, and the separation that it gives. It also lasts really well, which is the main reason why I like this. Like, this is a really good, reliable mascara that just doesn't smudge on me. The wand is also really fluffy, so it really does give you those fluffy lashes. The Fenty Hella Thick is definitely my favorite mascara that Fenty has released. It's a really nice volumizing mascara. I feel like this is a little bit more dramatic compared to the Rare Beauty. It gives kind of like a clumpier look. Clumpy in like a good way, not a bad way. It kind of makes the lashes look thick. I'm honestly a fan of this one too, but I really just love the Rare Beauty so much. Like, look at how nice and fluttery and just like wispy my lashes look. This one wins. There are two lip categories from both brands that I feel like are comparable to each other. Starting off with the lip stain category. Fenty has Poutsicle and Rare Beauty has the tinted lip oil. They're both lip stains, but they do it at a very different intensity and also a very different texture. So I'm gonna start off first with the Rare Beauty one because it's a little bit less intense. So this one is the shade Affection. So it goes on intense like this, but after it kind of dries down and starts to fade, it does fade to more of like a stain-like color. I'm gonna show you what that stain looks like. So obviously, depending on the color, it gives a very like lightweight, comfortable stain. And I really do like these Rare Beauty tinted lip oils. I wear them very often. And I find for myself, the stain wears really evenly. And it's just a really nice, easy lip product. The Fenty stain I find is slightly more intense. So this one's in the shade Berry Banger. Very similar color. I feel like if you're looking for a little bit more longevity to your stain, I would go with the Fenty. From my experience, the stain is more intense and does last a little bit longer. That's what that one looks like full on. Looks really similar to the Rare Beauty one. And then you let it sit and you kind of dab it off. You don't even need to dab it off if you don't want to. It'll naturally fade on its own. You see how like the stain is just a little bit deeper, a little bit more intense. That's what I'm talking about. I really don't know which one I want to choose because they're both so good and honestly so similar. I'm calling it a draw, but in a positive way because they're both really good. They both win. Okay, my lips look crazy, but we're gonna move on now to the liquid lip category. So for the liquid lip category, Fenty has the Stunna lip paints, and then Rare Beauty has the lip souffle. Right off the bat, I'm telling you right away, they're both amazing, but the Rare Beauty lip souffle is probably my favorite liquid lip formula out there. This is by far the most comfortable liquid lip that I've ever tried. I find them to be honestly a dream to wear. And because liquid lips are matte, like super matte, they can sometimes be a little bit unflattering because they'll like suction cup to the lips and accentuate all the fine lines on the lips. The Rare Beauty lip souffles do not do that. This shade is called Elevate, and it's a beautiful nude. It looks kind of like a pinky nude right now because my lips are stained. It's actually pretty neutral. It just feels almost like velvet when you rub your lips together. They absolutely nailed this formula. And then the Fenty Stunna lip paints are also a great liquid lip formula. They are definitely a little bit more drying, but they're also like a little bit more intense. And their starting formula is also really different. Like this is more of a moussey formula, whereas the Stunna lip paints are way more liquidy. I really love the applicator on the Stunna lip paints. It's kind of rounded, so you're really able to get very precise lip line. The red called Uncensored from this line is also like fantastic. They're also not overly drying, so overall really good formula, but Rare Beauty 100% wins because I just am obsessed with this formula so much. And that's it, guys. Those are all the products that I have to compare between Rare Beauty and Fenty. This is the final tally. I don't know which brand technically won, but these numbers will tell you. So yay to whichever brand won. But honestly, like both brands are so great. I feel like they do a lot of things right. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know your thoughts in the comments on both these brands, all the products I spoke about today. Do you agree with my winners? And again, let me know what other brands you'd like to see me put head to head next, and hit the thumbs up button if you did enjoy today's video, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.